On a storm-soaked highway, a single father pulled over to help a stranger whose car had died in the dark. He was exhausted, broke, and only weeks away from a trial that could take his little girl away forever. He had every reason to keep driving, every reason to save himself. But he didn't. What he didn't know was that the woman he helped that night would walk into his life again, wearing a judge's robe, holding his fate in her hands. And the decision she made in that courtroom would change both of their lives forever. Sometimes, life doesn't break all at once. That IT breaks in pieces. Small cracks that you keep patching, hoping it'll hold a little longer. That's what Elijah Brooks' life had become. A constant fixing of things that kept falling apart. Every morning began before dawn, the alarm clock screaming into the darkness of a tiny apartment. And every night ended long after midnight, when the world was quiet and even the walls seemed tired. Elijah worked double shifts at a shipping warehouse. Heavy boxes, long hours, short pay. But he didn't do it for himself, that he did it for his little girl, Ava, 7 years old, all freckles and sunshine. She was his reason, his fight, his every prayer whispered into the dark. But even love couldn't hold back the storm that was coming. 6 months earlier, the company he worked for, a small landscaping business, lost $47,000. Gone. Just vanished. And when the police came knocking, Elijah's name was the one on the report. His boss, Charles Wentworth, was a man with power, the kind who never raised his voice because his money did all the shouting for him. He told the court Elijah had stolen the money, and he had the documents to prove it. Bank statements, emails, records. Every piece of paper screamed guilty. Only Elijah hadn't taken a single cent. He'd been framed. But no one believed him. The court gave him a public defender, Mr. Patel, a kind man, overworked and tired. "I believe you," he said, "but proving it, that's another story." So Elijah kept going to work, kept paying bills, and kept tucking Ava into bed with a smile that wasn't real. Because when you're a single father, you don't get to fall apart. You just hold your breath and pray the truth shows up before the handcuffs do. Then came the night everything changed. The sky over Riverside Highway looked bruised and angry, filled with rain that didn't fall. It attacked. Elijah was driving home from a late shift, his eyes heavy, his thoughts heavier. The wipers beat a desperate rhythm against the windshield. He was half asleep when, through the blur of water and headlights, he saw them, flashing hazard lights, pulled over on the side of the road. He almost drove past. He told himself it wasn't his problem, but something, maybe instinct, maybe grace, made him slow down. Through the downpour, he saw her, a woman standing next to a luxury car, soaked to skin. She was trying to call someone, but her phone flickered uselessly in the rain. The road was empty. The world felt far away. Elijah hesitated. He knew how it might look. A tired, drenched black man walking up to a lone woman on a dark road. But he also knew what it felt like to need help and have no one stop. So he kept his distance, raised his hand so she could see them, and called out, "Hey, you okay, ma'am?" Her voice trembled but stayed calm. "It just died. Won't start." Elijah nodded toward the hood. "Mind if I take a look? I'm no mechanic, but I can try." She hesitated for a heartbeat, then stepped aside. The rain fell harder, but Elijah didn't notice. He opened the hood, checked the battery, and spotted it right away. A loose terminal, a 5-minute fix. He tightened it with his pocket wrench, wiped off the grime, and told her to try it again. The engine coughed once, twice, then came to life with a roar. The woman's relief turned into a bright, tired laugh. "Oh, thank God," she said, her voice breaking with gratitude. "How much do I owe you?" Elijah shook his head. "Nothing. Just glad I could help." He turned to go, but she called out after him. "Wait! What's your name? So I can thank you properly." "Elijah," he said over his shoulder. "Elijah Brooks." And then he was gone, swallowed up by the rain and the night. When Elijah finally reached home, Ava was asleep on the couch, a coloring book open beside her. He lifted her gently, tucked her in, and kissed her forehead. For the first time in weeks, he smiled, small but real. He had no idea that the woman from the highway would soon decide his fate. 3 weeks later, he found himself standing in Harbor City Criminal Court. His suit didn't fit. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. The courtroom felt like a place built for people like his boss, not for men like him. The prosecutor spoke first, sharp and confident. He painted Elijah as a desperate man who saw an opportunity and took it. Every word was a nail in his coffin. Elijah's lawyer tried his best, but against false evidence, truth had no legs. And then the bailiff called for everyone to rise. Elijah looked up at the bench, expecting to see another stranger in robes. Instead, his breath caught. His heart stopped. The woman behind the gavel, calm, composed, powerful, was her, the woman from the storm. She didn't show a hint of recognition. Her face was unreadable, her voice measured. But Elijah knew. He knew those eyes, the same ones that had looked at him in the rain with quiet trust. As the prosecutor laid out his case, she leaned forward, eyes narrowing at the documents he presented. "These are photocopies," she said sharply. "Were the originals?" The prosecutor stammered. "Your Honor, they were..." "Enough." Her tone sliced through the room. "This court will not proceed on unverified evidence. Defense motion for forensic review is granted." The gavel struck, echoing like thunder. For the first time, Elijah felt the smallest spark of hope. That night, as the rain began again over Harbor City, Elijah sat by his window, staring into the storm. He thought about that night on Riverside Highway, about how a stranger had trusted him for no reason at all. Maybe that's what faith really was. Not religion, not miracles, just believing that someone might still be good. He didn't know it yet, but that same belief, hers and his, would soon rewrite everything. Sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can echo louder than a lifetime of struggle. Elijah had no idea that his moment of compassion on that rainy road would become the turning point of his entire life. And that's where our story truly begins. Because what happened next was nothing short of redemption. 3 weeks after that night on Riverside Highway, Elijah Brooks stood in the cold heart of justice. The Harbor City Criminal Court. He wasn't thinking about fairness or truth anymore. He was thinking about his daughter, Ava, about what would happen to her if the judge said one wrong word. He looked down at his cheap suit, the second-hand one he bought for $30 at a thrift store. The sleeves were too short. His tie was borrowed. Everything about him screamed small voice, small chance, small life. The prosecutor walked in like a man who already knew the ending. Elijah's lawyer, Mr. Patel, gave him a quiet nod, tired, hopeful, but not confident. And then the bailiff's voice echoed to the room. "All rise." Elijah stood, and when he looked up, the world stopped. Behind the judge's bench, framed in the glow of the courtroom lights, was a face he would never forget. Her, the woman from the storm. He blinked, thinking maybe the exhaustion was playing tricks on him. But no, it was her, the same woman he had helped that night, soaked and stranded by the road. Only now she wore a black robe, her hair pulled back, her face calm and unreadable. Judge Claire Hayward. She didn't show a flicker of recognition. Her eyes were sharp, professional, and cold, but Elijah's heart pounded like thunder. The universe has strange ways of bringing people back into our lives. Sometimes as a test, sometimes as a blessing. He didn't know which this was yet. The trial began. The prosecutor, smooth and certain, laid out the case as if it were a script he'd practiced for weeks. He showed documents, forged records, fake emails, all pointing to Elijah. Every lie sounded rehearsed. Every fact landed like a stone in Elijah's gut. Mr. Patel objected, tried to push back, but the truth was buried under a mountain of manipulation. And then Judge Hayward leaned forward. Her voice cut through the noise. "These financial statements," she said, holding up the papers, "are they originals?" The prosecutor hesitated. "They're copies, Your Honor." Her tone turned sharp. "Then were the originals?" He shuffled his notes, unprepared. "The originals, well, our office hasn't." She interrupted, eyes narrowing. "Mr. Davis, this court does not convict men on unverified photocopies. Motion for forensic analysis is granted. Court adjourned until further notice." The gavel came down with a crack that echoed in Elijah's chest. It sounded like hope. That night, Behind closed doors, Judge Claire Hayward sat alone in her chambers. The courtroom was silent now, only the hum of rain against the tall windows. She closed her eyes and whispered to herself, Elijah Brooks. She remembered the night he'd appeared out of nowhere, fixing her car in the pouring rain, never asking for anything in return. He had been kind, careful, humble, and now, here he was, accused of a crime she could already tell he didn't commit. But she was trapped by her oath if she admitted that she knew him, even from a single encounter. She'd have to recuse herself. And as she stepped aside, the case would go to Judge Harrison, a man known for siding with the prosecution, known for rushing through trials like they were paperwork. If she left, Elijah would be gone. S.O. Claire Hayward made a choice that would haunt and free her all at once. She broke the rules and stayed on the case. 2 weeks later, the results came back. The forensic audit proved what Elijah had said all along. The records were forged. The missing money had been rerouted through an offshore account tied directly to Charles Wentworth, the real thief, the man who had framed him. The courtroom buzzed with whispers as the truth came out. Judge Hayward's voice was steady, but her eyes burned with quiet fire. This court finds that the prosecution's case was built on falsified evidence, she said. The defendant, Elijah Brooks, is hereby found innocent of all charges. And then, with a calm that could freeze steel, she added, this court orders an immediate investigation into Charles Wentworth for fraud, embezzlement, and obstruction of justice. The gavel struck one final time. Freedom, real heavy, unbelievable, fell over Elijah like sunlight breaking through clouds. When it was over, Elijah looked toward her. For a brief second, their eyes empty. And no words, just recognition, two souls bound by one impossible night. And then she looked away, professional and distant. He never saw her again. Weeks passed. Elijah found a new job at a small hardware store near the docks. The pay was simple, the work honest, and the nights were finally peaceful. Ava laughed again. She danced in the living room, made up songs about pancakes, and painted pictures of Daddy winning against the bad guys. For the first time in a long while, their home felt alive. Still, in the quiet moments, when the lights dimmed and Ava was asleep, Elijah thought about her, about the judge who had risked her career just to give him a chance at justice. He wondered if she ever thought about him too. Then one quiet afternoon, while restocking shelves of batteries, Elijah heard a voice behind him. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Do you know where I can find battery terminals?" He froze. Turn around, and there she was. No robes, no gavel, just Claire, wearing jeans and a soft gray sweater, smiling like the storm had never happened. Elijah's breath caught in his throat. "You recognize me," she said. He nodded. "How could I not? You knew who I was, didn't you? In court?" She sighed, her smile gentle but sad. "From the moment I saw your name. But if I had said anything, I would have had to step down. Judge Harrison would have taken over. You wouldn't be here right now." Elijah's voice broke. "You risked everything." She looked at him, eyes soft. "You saved me first," she whispered. "That night in the rain. You had every reason to drive past. But you didn't. I saw who you were. I couldn't let the system destroy you." Their story didn't turn into fireworks or movie magic. The IT started with coffee, quiet, honest, real. Soon after, Claire met Ava at a cafe filled with sunlight and spilled hot chocolate. Ava stared at her in awe. "You're the magic hammer lady," she said, her nickname for the judge who made bad people go away. Claire laughed until her eyes shone. She unrolled a crayon drawing Ava had made, of her wearing a cape and holding a gavel. Elijah blushed. Claire smiled, and in that small, perfect moment, something beautiful began. Over time, coffee turned into dinners. Dinners turned into Sunday walks and lazy afternoons in the park. Ava would always find a way to hold Claire's hand and say, "So you don't get lost." And every time, Claire would squeeze back and whisper, "I won't." By the third month, it wasn't just coincidence anymore. IT was family. In the end, Elijah realized something. The storm that once looked like punishment had been the start of everything worth keeping. And for Claire, the woman who had spent her life defending the law, that night had reminded her of something bigger. That justice isn't about rules, it's about humanity. Sometimes the worst nights bring us to the people who change everything. And sometimes doing the right thing, even when no one's watching, is a moment that saves 2 lives instead of 1. That night on Riverside Highway wasn't just a storm, it was a beginning. The night 2 broken lives collided and found something neither of them was looking for: redemption, love, and the proof that kindness still matters.